This is the Epoch Times.
Welcome to Epoch Audio, showcasing the best journalism covering news, culture, and society, addressing issues overlooked or avoided by other media. For the text version of this and more articles providing truth, tradition, and hope, please go to theepochtimes.com.
Hamas targeted Israeli women with rape and unspeakable atrocities, Israelis say. By Dan M. Berger. Experts in the fight against rape and sexual abuse demanded to know why international women's organizations have remained silent about the horrific sex crimes Hamas committed in Israel on October 7th. And there's no doubt that they did. The experts, all women, who spoke on November 12th in an online seminar organized by Jewish professional students at Harvard University, have been systematically gathering evidence since the attack. The one who headed up that effort spoke about the unspeakable. Ms. Koch of Elkayam-Levy, a legal scholar and chair of Israel's Civil Commission on October 7th Crimes by Hamas against Women and Children, spoke for nearly 20 minutes, listing crime after crime in sickening detail. They've gathered extensive evidence from eyewitness testimony, police investigations, medical examiners, first responders, doctors, Hamas's own videos broadcast on social media, videos from survivors, news reports, the interrogations of captured Hamas terrorists, and forensic evidence gathered by hospitals, morgues, and at crime scenes. The event moderator, Dr. Elizabeth Goffberg, a Harvard Medical School professor, said the investigation continues. Quote, investigators are still uncovering and documenting the many atrocities that took place. The event was streamlined to a capacity crowd of about 2,300 people, and a recording that has been made available online has more than 16,000 views. The event was organized by Jewish student associations at Harvard Medical, Dental, Law, and Business schools. Ms. Elkayam-Levy, the commissioner's founder, explained why its members organized and launched its inquiry. Despite Hamas broadcasting videos in real time on October 7th showing, quote, clear violations of international law and brutal crimes committed against women and children, no national or international bodies have stepped forward to condemn it. UN groups, in their initial statements, were quick to equate Israel's subsequent bombing of Gaza with Hamas's attack, said Ruth Halperin-Kaddari, an international law expert and former member of the UN's Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. What was striking about the UN's Women's Statement of October 13th, she said, quote, is the complete silence about the actual atrocities committed during October 7th. They failed to name Hamas. They did not mention war crimes, crimes against humanity, and no word about sexual violence committed against women and girls. As this story went to press, there was no mention whatsoever on the UN Women's website of Hamas's October 7th attack. But numerous news reports and press releases of Israel's counterattack against Gaza and its effect on women and girls. Ms. Halperin-Kaddari said, quote, never did I imagine that when faced with such undeniable atrocities, the very purpose for which they have been established, to protect women from these kinds of atrocities, to prevent them, I never imagined that they would actually resort to not acknowledging that at all. These bodies do not only fail us, Israeli Jewish women, but they undermine the purpose for which they were established, and in fact they undermine the whole international human rights system. It's not a question of symmetry here. You can show empathy, and you can also talk about what Israel must do with respect to Palestinians in Gaza. But failing to actually face this event that we Israelis had undergone on October 7th is being complicit in the denial of the most atrocious act in modern humanity. And it is really a shame on these international bodies and international women's organizations, unquote. Oret Solitzanu, executive director of the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel, said rape survivors often take a long time, years or even decades, to talk about what happened to them. Those demanding first-hand accounts now as evidence won't get it. Quote, underreporting will be very, very big. The calls the rape crisis centers take often feature the crisis worker picking up the phone, only to hear silence at the other end, as the victim can't yet talk about it, she said. Dr. Devorah Bowman, director at the Bat Ami Center for Sexual Abused Victims at Hadassah Medical Center in Jerusalem, discussed rape as a weapon of war. There are accounts going back as far as the Trojan War, when a Greek commander ordered his men, after they'd won, to rape the women of Troy. She said, "We have a lot of explanations why it's so important, and of course it's humiliation. And a woman is a symbol of safeness, of a somebody who keeps the home while he's in battle. And hurting the women means that nothing anymore is safe." And she said, "Women represent a nation's continuity. Once you rule out the woman, you exclude the nation. There's no nation anymore. It's the nation of the ruler." Ms. Solițianu said 90% of wartime rape cases include group rape. She said many soldiers do it together because for them it is some kind of bonding and solidarity and whatever. Forcing family members to witness it is part of the torture. An interrogator said, "When I asked why did you take women, one terrorist answered, to have our way with them, to dirty them, to rape them." Ms. Elkayam-Levy said another terrorist confirmed that the actions included beheading people and having sex with dead bodies, including young women. According to the Haaretz newspaper, that terrorist said he received permission from his religious leaders to murder children so that the children would not grow up to be Jews. He also received permission to abuse women and their bodies in order to spread fear in Israeli society. Ms. Halperin-Kaddari said that evidence includes documents and information from captured terrorists. She said they got clear, direct instructions to go for women, to go for children, to be as cruel as they wish, and to do whatever savagery and cruelty that they can think of despite Islam's teachings. And they apparently received special dispensation from certain imams to allow them to engage in these atrocities. Ms. Elkayam-Levy listed specific crimes they documented that Hamas committed on October 7th. Warning: the remainder of the story contains descriptions that she presented on November 12th that are violent, graphic, and shocking. Ms. Elkayam-Levy warned listeners the account could be traumatizing and advised them to seek counseling afterward if necessary and to mute the sound if they were unsure. Quote, "Videos and footage released by Hamas show, for example, a dead woman who is seen in one of the videos at the festival with rigor mortis, stripped from the waist down, legs spread apart, body partly burned. Another image shows the body of a young woman stripped from the waist down, her underwear torn, hung from one leg, and she was further burned on the site of the Nova Music Festival. A video released by Hamas shows a young woman who was abducted to Gaza surrounded by men in the back of a car, her hands tied behind her back, and a large bloodstain between her legs and signs of trauma to her feet and arms. Another video posted by Hamas on social media shows the body of a young woman almost fully naked and unconscious, her legs in an unnatural position, and she's paraded in the back of a pickup truck while the crowd cheers. Another image shows a murdered woman, her hands bound, her body abused and burned. Ms. Elkayam-Levy warned the audience about a particularly horrifying video she was about to recount. It shows terrorists torturing a pregnant woman while she is still alive. They cut her stomach open, took out her fetus, and cut off her breast while they were wildly beating her. Ms. Elkayam-Levy recited testimony an eyewitness gave to police of an attack on a woman. "They bent her over and I realized they were raping her one by one. Then she was passed over to another man in uniform. She was alive when she was raped. She was on her feet and bleeding from her back. He pulled her hair. He shot her in the head while he was still raping her. He didn't even lift his hand. They cut her breast and literally played with it on the street. They held up someone's head as a show of strength, like a woman walking with a bag." Ms. Elkayam-Levy said a festival survivor told a news agency of hiding for 2 hours, hearing people getting kidnapped and a woman getting raped, and you hear people dying, begging for their lives, women begging for their lives, and you can't make a sound because they'll find you. They'll find you to kidnap you and kill you. In one of the reports from first responders, Ms. Elkayam-Levy said a paramedic who entered one of the houses in Kibbutz Be'eri posted on a video published by several media outlets. "I saw 2 girls lying there, one on a bed, one on the floor in their bedroom, and the girl, she's a 14 to 15-year-old teenager. She's lying on the floor on her stomach. Her pants are pulled down and she's half naked. Her legs are spread out wide open and there were remains of sperm on her back. Someone executed her right after he brutally raped her. She was left there to lie in a puddle of blood." Medical staff documented severe and cruel injuries and specific brutality against women and girls, Ms. Elkayam-Levy said. An Israeli volunteer from Jerusalem who worked to identify bodies of female victims and prepare them for burial told the Daily Mail, "We've seen that women have been raped, children too, elderly women have been raped, forcible entry to the point where bones were broken. We saw many mutilated corpses, we saw genitals cut off, heads cut off. This was just abject cruelty. Women have been raped. They've been raped so violently that pelvises were broken. Now think about what it must take to break a pelvis, or the legs were broken. There was forced entry. This was babies up until grandmothers." Ms. Elkayam-Levy said another volunteer who worked identifying bodies reported, "We see evidence of torture and savagery. We have babies with their heads cut off, babies without hands, without legs, without genitals." This was Hamas-targeted Israeli women with rape and unspeakable atrocities, Israelis say. Written by Dan M. Berger, and read for you by Chris Rod.
For more Epoch Times articles in text, please visit theepochtimes.com.
This is the Epoch Times.